The word meaning as error came long after, I think, this book. But this book is written in 10th century. So, this commentary, the commentary by whom?
Amrita Chandra.
Amrita Chandra, correct. Amrita Chandra's commentary of Atma Khyati on Samayasara was written 10th century. But still he puts the, I do not know why he puts, by then already we have Vijnanavada school and Atma Khyati and other Khyatis spoken in our tradition, isn't it? So this is a very intriguing point, needs to be researched as to why Atma Khyati was given as the name of a text. But Atma Khyati is not wrong if you take the Rudhi, the traditional meaning of the word into consideration. Now, Samayasara analysis. The most important of Kunda Kunda's work is Samayasara. Friends, I am running out of time, I think. Now, my submission here is this word Samaya. The Jainas usually translate the word Samaya as
Atma.
Atma. But Samaya in our South Indian tradition is
Dharma.
religion. Saiva Samaya, Shankar writes. Jaina Samaya. Samaya means the period, time, and it has taken another meaning, conventional meaning of the thinking of that particular time as Samaya. It happens only in the South India. South Indian writers only write Samaya as religion or philosophy, not North Indians. The word is Samaya Prabrita. In the manuscripts you find that it is written as Samaya Prabrita. Which translated into English, it will be essence of the soul, self. Even though the word Samaya is taken in the sense of self, the word Samaya in Sanskrit means philosophy or religion. Besides, it's having connotation in time, period. So, as we find in the writings of Shankara and that of Saiva writers, I may mention here that the word Samaya in the sense of philosophy, religion, is used only in the South Indian writings. In all probability, since the essence of Jaina philosophy is emancipation of the self, the word Samaya stands for the self. Like Samaya, otherwise it would mean only the philosophy or religion, or else the Samaya Sara might also mean the essence of Jaina thought. In one of the Jaina texts, Samavayanga Sutra, there are a few meanings assigned to the word Samaya, and the preferred meaning of the Jaina scholars is the self. However, W.F. Thomas in his introduction to Panchastikaya Sara translates Samaya Sara as essence of religion. The authors begin the work with the worship to the Siddhas who have realized their true nature. It depicts the purest state of the self and how it is replete with excellent exposition representing essence of the preaching of the great Tirthankaras. The author opens his discourse with a definition of the realization of the self as identical with a right faith, a right knowledge, and a right conduct. The self in the world is determined by his own karma and stuck in the cycle of rebirth according to the karmic conditions. When karmas are completely destroyed and the self achieves its true nature and becomes a siddha, free of cycle of births, which gets stopped. Friends, I will just summarize the whole thing. The first chapter, the whole Samaya Sara is a analysis of Jaina metaphysics, taking into consideration two things, Jiva and Ajiva. Even though Jiva and Ajiva is given in a very detailed manner, analyzed in a detailed manner, the whole crux everywhere comes back to the concept of Jiva. What is the essence of the Jiva? And in many ways, he writes about what the concept of Jiva is. He says, Jivaha charitra darsana jnana sthitaha. See, this is the very important, how so much emphasis is given on Triratna as it is in Buddhist tradition. Triratna, like Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, same thing here. Triratna has different connotations in different traditions, but he says Charitra, Darsana, Jnana. See, if you take three things there also, you will see Charitra, Darsana and Jnana, isn't it? Buddha stands for Jnana, isn't it? Sangha stands for Charitra and Dhamma stands for Darsana. Same thing. Tam hi swasamayam janihi. Understand it to be your own philosophy. I translate it in that way, not as the soul. Understand it to be your own religion, your own teaching. Pudgala karmopadesa sthitam cha tam janihi parasamayam. Understand that which is bound with or connected to Pudgala and karma as parasamaya, the thinking of others. Like other soul, the real of other soul, like other self you can say, but the right translation will be, see, the whole problem is we do not have the analytical translation of any of the Jaina texts, excepting Jainist translation of some texts. Even then, I think there is a need of redoing many of the things that has been already partially done. So like the famous Jaina Tirthankaras, Kunda does not believe in the creator, supreme being. So much like I have already given all these things. Kunda mentioned how the karmic practice, many, the whole exercise hereafter is to see the Kunda's thinking in keeping with the thinking of the Tirthankaras. The how Kunda is not caught in the tradition of division, the schools, and goes beyond it, and he says that if the Samaya has to be followed, that it has to be followed as has been envisaged by the preceptor, that is Buddha. So I read my summary. As a member of the oldest non-Vedic living religions, Jainism follows the teaching of 24 Tirthankaras, and some historians are of the view the Mahavira was one of the contemporaries of the Buddha and reformed Jainism and gave a solid philosophical foundation. The preeminence of non-violence stands contrary to any practice which has even a little contact with any type of harm made to organic, inorganic matter and souls. The Jainas did not accept the supremacy and teaching of the Vedas. They fight out the aggression of the economic greed, but as offenders of religion, and they held the ethics even in its highest regard. The Jainas has a long list of preceptors, even before Mahavira. Unlike many religious thinking in India, Jainism is a philosophical thinking which does not require the support of any books. As I have already told you, it was Vardhamana who gave a definite form to Jainism, though he did not write or compose any book. Kunda retaught what Mahavira has mentioned earlier, an ascetic, the thinking centering around asceticism. To take the life of an ascetic was an essential step towards realization of the highest aim, according to Kunda, and again in keeping with the line of the Mahavira, Kunda freely and frankly expressed his opinion against the prejudices and ignorance. His teaching have offered both inspiration and guidance to anybody, to any Indian thinking. Like when you go through Samaya Sara, you don't find, he says many things whichever tradition you come from, whichever tradition you have understood or read, you will find similarity with that tradition. Liberation by complete understanding of the self is the basic teaching of Samaya Sara, and any conception, causal or effectual with the non-self is, according to Kunda, is a delusion, is a product of ignorance. So much about ignorance, limitation, imperfection, bondage. So to obtain liberation, these conceptions must be destroyed, which you find in Nagarjuna in a very elaborate way. He was a great exponent of Jaina philosophy rather than its religious practices, and that is how I say that he is a reconciliator. He tried to reconcile both the schools of Jainism, transcending the fissures, the differences that came after the Mahavira. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Godavarisha, and I'm sure we have sufficient time to deal with all questions that you might have.
So you have touched upon the controversy pertaining to women's status when it comes to liberation. That is not an issue resolved, but I would like to have an observation on that. Like in psychoanalytical terms, every human is both male and female. So wouldn't it rather be the feminine psyche or that feminine nature which is not fit for liberation?
Which?
Which is not fit for, which is attributed to be non-fit for liberation, rather than the feminine embodiment.
It's a too difficult question to answer.
The question of female liberation is the content of another paper in itself. But the question of definition of who is a man.
I would not say
women.
that it is inherent in the psyche of a woman not to be liberated, or as you said in the beginning, the man and women have the traits of both in their own being. Therefore, I would never say, even Nietzsche talks about super human beings, supermen, isn't it? He says some women are better than men, isn't it? So, but taking into consideration the time in which these prasthanikas, these religious teachers came, I think because of the, I do not know, social pressure, the conditions of the time, the limitations of their own existence, I do not know what. Even Buddha had the same problem. Buddha came out, and Buddha, in Buddhist literature you see that Buddha is warning Ananda that the admission of ladies into the Sangha will be disastrous. And the same thing you find in the West also, like even in the Greek philosophy, the way they treated that. See, there is no way we can justify what has happened in the past. See, we are reading a text which belongs to more than 2,500 years, sorry, 2,200 years at least. So, from taking that time into consideration, we, many times they ask the question, why did Shankara not write about the Sudras being equal to others, Apasudradhikaran? This is a question very, it can be answered in many ways. The societal condition Shankara did not want to disturb. And Shankara was commenting upon something else. Even Mahavira came in a tradition of Sramanas, isn't it? So, we do not know, but Svetambaras, as he has already pointed out, have accepted the women, whereas Digambaras say that, but as I told you, this is too small a consideration for justifying not admitting liberation for women. But it is a very grey area, and I would not accept your like whatever you said, that the psyche of the woman is not fit for liberation. That is not how it is. It is not man-woman specific. It is transcending man, and all men are also not prone to liberation. They don't desire a liberation like the religious liberation that is being spoken of by these acharyas.
Let's go to the next question. Sundar.
Yeah, let him speak.
She has something
I
to
have a
comment on.
clarification, like it was not the psyche of the woman that I referred to, but the feminine nature of the human psyche, which is there in every human.
Like what it is, how do you, what is that feminine nature?
I'll have to resort to that binary logic, like there is something active in every human psyche, and there is something passive.
Yeah, but everything is constructed. What is feminine is constructed. What is masculine
Exactly.
is constructed. So when it's constructed already, there is no true feminine or true masculine
Exactly
to begin
true.
with. It's no, you can't be essentialist about it.
you have any-
So I
Yeah, there
think
is
it's time
Ladies
to
and
go on to the
gentlemen.
next question. I think more or less
Excuse me,
everybody
ladies and
understood
gentlemen.
what's
Okay.
being said.
Ladies and gentlemen, excuse me, if you have if you have points of comment, please
I
let
like
me know.
we cannot make any generalization like that. It is too swift.
If you have a question,
Like even
please.
we do not know what Mahavira spoke about it. No, like
No.
yeah.
But please indicate to me that you have a comment or a question,
No, it's
so that we follow a little bit of order. Sundar, please. Sundar, and then the lady here.
It's again a historical question which I wanted to clarify. It's something related to what you said. You said, when the Jaina and Buddhism begins as anti-Vedic, anti-Brahminical and so on, right? Now, by the time you have this text in 2nd century AD, how much of these concerns still remain as part of Jainism? How much of these concerns about anti-Brahminical, anti-Vedic remain as Jainism spreads? See, the reason I'm asking is, there have been other attempts, like the one of the papers I was talking about today points out that perhaps the reason why they had Anekantavada, etc., is because Jainism was a minority religion. They were surrounded by dominant communities, and so they come with a, that's a kind of explanation I find very dubious. But
very dubious.
Yeah, but the point is, what happens to the originary impulse of being anti-Vedic, anti-Brahminical? So by the time you have this text in the 2nd century, are they still holding on to it? Because you see, they are getting religious, they are not following, it becomes more syncretic with Hindu tradition, their practices of worship, etc. begins.
Correct.
Although it begins as an atheistic tradition.